Picture the scene: dust, sweat, and the stench of death in the air. A king, drunk with power, is about to commit his final act of cruelty. Below him, a conquered city. Above, a stone tower, the last refuge of terrified men, women, and children. He approaches the door, ready to set the fire that will consume them all. But when he looks up, he finds not only despair, he finds his fate in the hands of an anonymous woman, holding an ordinary object, about to become a weapon of divine justice. This is not the story of a great army or a famous prophet. It is the story of how a tyrant's arrogance was crushed by a millstone, and how God used the most unlikely of heroes to fulfill his word. To understand the fall of a king, we must first understand his bloody rise. Our story takes place during one of Israel's most turbulent periods, the era of the Judges. It was a dark time, summed up in one chilling phrase from Scripture. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Judges 21:25. It was into this leadership vacuum that figures like Gideon, the great judge who, with just 300 men, freed Israel from the Midianites, emerged. Gideon was a hero, but his family life was complex. He had 70 children with his many wives, and he had one more, a son with his concubine in the city of Shechem. His name was Abimelech, which ironically means, "My father is king," a name he would take all too seriously. Abimelech grew up in the shadow of his 70 half-brothers. He was not a legitimate son of Gideon's main house in Ophrah. He was the son of Shechem's wife, an outsider in his own family, and within him, a seed of bitterness and ambition began to sprout. After Gideon's death, rather than accept his place, Abimelech saw an opportunity. He traveled to Shechem, to his mother's clan, not with a request, but with a dangerous and manipulative proposal. He whispered in their ears, playing on their fears and local pride. "Which is better for you?" he asked. "To be ruled by 70 men, all the sons of Gideon, or by just one? Remember, I am your bone and your flesh." Judges 9:2. The seed of rebellion was planted. He offered not leadership but power, promising to favor Shechem above all other cities. The leaders of Shechem were seduced. They saw in Abimelech their chance for prominence. To finance their plan, they gave him 70 pieces of silver from the temple of their idol, Baal-berith, the Lord of the Covenant. Tarnished money from idolatry to finance an act of unimaginable cruelty. With this silver, Abimelech hired a band of mercenaries, frivolous and impudent men, and marched toward his father's house in Ophrah. What happened next would stain the history of Israel forever. Abimelech did not go to fight a battle. He went to commit an extermination. He took his 70 half-brothers, Gideon's heirs, and brutally executed them, all of them, on a single stone, one by one. It was an act of pure tyranny, eliminating anyone who might challenge his claim to power. The legacy of the deliverer Gideon was drowned in the blood of his own sons, at the hands of his other son. But Abimelech made a mistake. One brother escaped. The youngest of them all, Jotham, hid and watched the horror. While the men of Shechem crowned their new king Abimelech at the sacred oak, Jotham climbed to the top of Mount Gerizim, the mountain of blessing, and from there he uttered a curse in parable form. He told the story of the trees that sought a king. The olive tree, the fig tree, and the vine all refused, preferring to give their good fruit to God and men. But the useless thorn bush accepted on one sinister condition, that all the other trees take shelter under its shade. And he warned, "If not, may fire come out of the thorn bush and devour even the cedars of Lebanon." Jotham then applied the parable directly to them, ending with a dire prophecy. "If you have acted truthfully and sincerely, then you will rejoice in Abimelech, and he in you. But if not, then may fire come out from Abimelech and consume the men of Shechem. And may fire come out from the men of Shechem and consume Abimelech." Judges 9:19-20. A curse of mutual destruction. After delivering his warning, Jotham fled, and his words hung in the air, awaiting God's timing for fulfillment. For 3 years Abimelech reigned, but his throne was not built on righteousness, but on fear, and Jotham's prophecy began to stir. Scripture says that God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. The blood covenant began to sour. The men who had crowned him now despised him, setting ambushes and undermining his authority. The rebellion that Abimelech had inspired now turned against him. The treachery was exposed, and Abimelech's fury was complete. He marched against Shechem, his mother's city, and crushed it without mercy. He destroyed the city and sowed it with salt, a symbolic act to make it barren forever. But it was not over. About 1,000 men and women of Shechem fled to the fortress of the temple of Baal-berith, the same temple from which the money for the massacre came. Abimelech, in an act of supreme cruelty, ordered his men to cut down branches from the trees. He himself carried a bundle on his shoulders, piled it against the fortress, and set it on fire. 1,000 people, trapped in their last hope, were burned alive. The fire that Jotham prophesied had come from Abimelech and consumed the people of Shechem. The first half of the curse was fulfilled. Feeling invincible, an instrument of his own twisted justice, Abimelech did not stop. He turned his fury on the neighboring city of Thebes, which had apparently also rebelled. The tactic was the same. He took the city in a fury, and the remaining inhabitants, men and women alike, ran to the only defensible structure left, a strong tower in the center of the city. They locked themselves inside and climbed to the roof, watching in horror as Abimelech's army surrounded the base. The tyrant, with the smell of Shechem's smoke still on his clothes, approached the tower door. In his mind, the plan was simple and tried and tested. More fire, more death, more power. He was at the height of his arrogance, just a few feet away from repeating his most monstrous act. Inside, the air was thin with panic. To those trapped souls, the end seemed certain. They heard the soldiers' screams, saw the tyrant king approaching the door below. Death was not just knocking at the door, it was about to burn it down. But amid the chaos, one woman, whose name history has not recorded, saw something the others did not. She did not just see an invincible king. She saw a man, a target, and she saw an opportunity. Near her was an everyday object, an upper millstone. Not the large base stone, but the smaller, movable stone that a woman would use every day to grind grain and make bread for her family. A symbol of sustenance, of life, of home. In that moment, in this woman's hands, it would become an instrument of judgment. With strength born of desperation and courage, she lifted it. Abimelech, proud and with his eyes fixed on the wooden door he was about to burn, did not notice the danger coming from above. He did not hear the whisper of the air being displaced. He only felt the impact. Thebes' wife did not hesitate. She released the stone. The Bible is direct and brutal in its description. And a woman cast a piece of a millstone upon Abimelech's head and brake his skull. Judges 9:53. The tyrant king, the conqueror of cities, the murderer of brothers, fell. Not by a sword in battle, but by a household implement thrown from a rooftop. But even in his last breaths, his pride was his main concern. Bleeding, dying, he called to his young squire and gave his last order. "Draw your sword and kill me, so that no one will say of me, 'A woman killed him.'" Judges 9:54. He wanted to control his own narrative until the end. What bitter irony. In his desperate attempt to erase the shame of being killed by a woman, he made sure that this was exactly the story that would be told forever. The young man obeyed, and so Abimelech died, fulfilling the second half of Jotham's curse. Fire, in the form of crushing judgment, had gone out from the people and consumed Abimelech. When news of Abimelech's death spread, his army disbanded. The campaign of terror was over. The war was over. And who was the heroine? A nameless woman. The story doesn't tell us whether she had children in the tower, or a husband, or what her status was. And perhaps that is the most powerful part of the message. She represents not one person, but all people. She is a symbol of the courage that can emerge from the most unexpected places when justice seems lost. The story of Abimelech is a grim reminder that ambition built on blood and pride inevitably leads to ruin. He fought so hard for a name, for a legacy, and his name is forever linked to a humiliating death. The woman of Thebes, in her anonymity, achieved far greater glory. She did not seek power or fame. She acted to protect the innocent. The scriptures conclude the story perfectly. So God brought back upon Abimelech the evil he had done to his father in killing his 70 brothers, and all the evil of the men of Shechem God brought back upon their own heads. And the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubbaal, came upon them. Judges 9:56-57. God's justice may seem slow, but it never fails. And sometimes it comes in the form of a simple stone, in the hands of a courageous woman on top of a tower. If this story of unexpected courage and divine justice resonated with you, please show your support by liking and sharing this video so more people can learn about the power of the Bible's unsung heroes. We want to hear from you. What other minor or anonymous figure in the Bible had a huge impact that inspires you? Comment below. And most importantly, if you love these in-depth journeys through Scripture, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Thank you for watching. May the courage of the woman of Thebes inspire us all.